Malware is the bully of the cyber world, raking in billions while it trashes your systems. Malware's the top menace, and knowing its flavors, worms, Trojans, and ransomware, is your superpower. This is Intellectual Point. We help you get a job in tech. Cybersecurity analysts hunt it down and kick it out, network admins build firewall fortresses, and penetration testers play bad guy to test the locks. Real world chaos? WannaCry in 2017. It locked up hospitals and businesses and 200,000 systems worldwide, demanding crypto ransoms like a digital pirate. Smart teams with backups and endpoint security told it to shove off. No payment, just a swift delete. Malware hates a prepared crew. For more, we turn to Intellectual Point instructor Stephen Ware.
So first, we'll start with malware attacks. In order to do this, you need to be able to identify different types of malicious software. That's what malware stands for. Malicious software. This is any software program that by design has the intent to harm or disrupt your services at your organization or do something bad to you. And they fall under general categories. They're listed here: ransomware, Trojan, worm, spyware, bloatware, virus, keylogger, logic bomb, and rootkit. Now, there are more than this, but these are the ones that you need to know for Security Plus. These are the generic or general ones, and we're going to talk about these ones specifically as we go through. Now, first is a ransomware attack. Now, ransom is when you take something hostage, you make somebody pay for it. That's exactly what this attack is named after. It's a type of malicious software, malware, that encrypts the files on a victim's computer or network, making them inaccessible to the user. Now, we talked about encryption. This is taking plain text and converting it into ciphertext so that it's not usable to anybody who does not have the key, right? It does this with a key. So if you don't have the key, you can't convert it back into plain text. So what bad guys will do is they will break into networks and they will cipher all of the data. They'll complete step one with a key that only they have. Now, the company actually owns the data, but they can't access the data. They need it in this form, and it's been converted into ciphertext by the bad guys. Now, they need to convert it back into plain so that the company can use it again. So what the bad group will do is they will sell this key to the company that they ciphered the data. And typically, they will get paid through something like Bitcoin or some type of cryptocurrency or something like that, so that they cannot be traced back to them. Now, that's what ransomware is in a nutshell. And the attacker then demands a ransom, usually in cryptocurrency, in exchange for providing the decryption key or restoring access to the files. If the ransom is not paid, the files may remain encrypted or be destroyed permanently. This is not always the case. Sometimes blackmail is there, extortion is there. In the case of Ashley Madison, if you've never heard of Ashley Madison, it was a dating site or an affair site, and they had this exact type of attack carried out against them. They said, you will pay us money or we will release all data to the general public. And Ashley Madison did not pay, so all of the data was publicly released. And there's actually a documentary about it that you can watch. That's a ransomware attack. Ransomware typically spreads through phishing emails, malicious attachments, infected websites, or vulnerabilities in unpatched software. Now, we've talked about the vulnerabilities in your organization. Anything that gives a bad guy access, any vulnerability they can exploit, can result in ransomware. And we've also talked about the type of threat actor this would be. This threat actor is interested in financial gain, which is the same as a criminal. So you would expect that if your company got hit with a ransomware attack, you're being hit by somebody who's interested in financial gain. Now, after execution, ransomware begins encrypting the victim's files using a strong encryption algorithm. These files could be documents, spreadsheets, images, videos, databases, or system files. Anything on your system can be encrypted. The entire thing can be. Once the files are encrypted, a ransomware note appears on the victim's screen, typically demanding payment for the decryption key. The note usually contains instructions on how to make the payment, often in cryptocurrency, and warns the victim that failure to comply will result in the permanent loss of their files. If the victim agrees to pay the ransom, the attacker may send the decryption key to restore access to the encrypted files. However, there is no guarantee that paying the ransom will result in the files being unlocked. Many security experts advise against paying the ransom because it encourages criminal activity and does not guarantee recovery of data. Now, this is a pretty big problem. There's a couple things we can do in our organization to prevent this. First off, keeping multiple copies of our data. Copy. Call these backups. Having a very good backup policy will help with this type of problem. But it only helps if you're able to catch the ransomware before backups occur. In other words, it's possible for your backups to also become encrypted if you're not paying attention to your organization. So you have to be monitoring your organization regularly for things like this. Now, this is just one category. So any software program, this is not the name of a specific software program. This is a software type. It's a type of malware. Many different softwares can do this. Many different programs can do this, but any program that does this is considered a type of ransomware. Next, we have Trojans. A Trojan is short for Trojan horse. It's named after the Trojan horse. You know, that Trojan horse that was wheeled into the city and all the people hid in. It is an active type of malicious software that disguises itself as a legitimate or harmless program to deceive users into installing it. Once activated, a Trojan can perform various harmful actions, such as stealing sensitive information, providing unauthorized access, all the stuff we've talked about you can achieve with a Trojan. Unlike viruses or worms, Trojans do not replicate. So they don't have the capability to replicate. There's no coding inside of them that allows them to copy themselves and create another copy. No Mr. Smiths. They rely on social engineering or trickery to be downloaded and executed. So it appears legitimate is the thing. This looks like a legitimate program, something you'd probably need. And there's malware disguised or hidden inside of it. When you download it, you install it. The key is that it's a deceptive appearance because it appears, again, legitimate. It masquerades as a legitimate software file, something you probably would trust initially. Then it executes. Once the Trojan is executed on your system, it performs all the intended malicious actions that the bad guy wants to carry out. There's also the payload delivery. The payload is the harmful action that the Trojan carries out. This is stealing credentials, allowing a bad guy into your system, installing malware, ransomware, keyloggers, viruses, whatever it is they want to install. It could disable your security suite on your system, and it makes it more easy for them to future attack you or attack you in the future. A couple of specific Trojans is the remote access Trojan. This is a big one. This should be purple actually, so you'll want to make sure you know this one. A rat, we call this having a rat in your system. This is when someone else is able to access your system. What happens is you got your computer and some bad guy installs a rat on there. If you wanted to remote connect to another computer, which means if you want to sit here at your computer and use your computer to access a computer somewhere you're not, let's say this is your friend's house, you want to access their computer, you can do that from your desktop. To do that, you have to work out with your friend and configure both computers for what's called remote connection. And you would be able to log in and move the mouse and keyboard on his computer or her computer if you wanted to through that remote connection. Now, a rat is a bad program that gets on your computer, and what it does is it acts like you. Okay, so it says, oh, I'm Steve, and there's a bad guy's computer. He wants to access your computer. So the rat will act like you and try to configure your computer as if you were sitting on it so that he could then access your computer. The same way you had to configure with your friend to set it up, rat is a program that tries or attempts to configure your computer to allow that remote connection to happen with the bad guy. So this program, not a big program, not a crazy program, pretty easy to detect. The thing is when this gets on there, it will run and run and run, and it'll keep running until you get rid of it. As a really easy fix for this, you can simply disable any remote access capabilities on your computer as the owner of your computer. You can disable remote access services. And that will prevent the rat from being able to do anything. Okay, the rat will still run. It'll still try to configure your computer, but it'll never actually get that connection up and running. Now, once the bad guy has remote access to your computer, he can do whatever he wants. He can take it over. He can, do whatever. We also have something called Trojan Fake AV. That's fake antivirus. That's the type of Trojan that looks like an antivirus program. You download it, but it's actually not. You got Trojan Spy. These Trojans are designed to spy on the victim, gathers your information and so on. Any program that is masquerading as a legitimate program, you download it and it's doing something bad. Now we're going to get into how to identify these programs moving forward, different signs you can look for and so on when we get to the end of this lesson. But Trojan is another category. So if you got a malware that's pretending to be legitimate software and it actually has malicious intention, that's called a Trojan, named after the Trojan horse. Next, we have a worm. And a worm is a type of malicious software that is capable of replicating. Self-replicating. So this is the Mr. Smith in the Matrix, right? He can stick his hand in somebody's chest and creates a copy of himself, right? That's what happens. Unlike a virus, which requires a host to replicate, worms spread independently. So just like Mr. Smith does what he does, where he sticks his hand in that person's chest and it replicates and he can create multiple of himself, he can repurpose. That's what a worm does. Now, a virus has the capability to replicate as well, but it does not have the capability to spread independently. Mr. Smith only needs himself to do this. A virus needs a host. It attaches itself to a host, the same way a virus in your body does. It attaches itself to a host, a cell, or some organism in your body, and then it will replicate and spread from there. A worm does not need a host. Often exploiting vulnerabilities in systems and networks to propagate, worms can cause significant harm by consuming network bandwidth, damaging files, stealing data, and launching further attacks. Sorry, in this Mr. Smith needed a host, so he was more like a virus. Does that make sense? So I do apologize for that. So Mr. Smith is more like a virus. If Mr. Smith could just make infinite copies of himself without another program, that would be a worm, okay? So key features of a worm is self-replication. Worms are designed to replicate themselves. Once they find a vulnerable system, they can create copies of themselves and automatically spread to other systems on the same network or through the internet. Also, exploit vulnerabilities. They are designed and coded to exploit specific security flaws or vulnerabilities in software, operating systems, or network services. They apply to anything. For example, worms may target unpatched systems or known security holes, using them as a gateway to infect other systems. They're also capable of propagating through a network or a system of computers. After infection, the worm can search for other vulnerable machines on the same network or on the internet, using various methods, such as email file sharing, and so on. They exploit vulnerabilities in services like RDP or network protocols like SMB, service message block. Then they deliver their payload. Similar to other forms of malware, worms may carry a payload that performs malicious activities, like stealing data, installing malware. So you can see it does a lot of things that other malware do. But the key that makes this a worm is that it is self-replicating and it spreads independently. Those are the two key words. Spreads independently, self-replicating. It can do a whole bunch of damage just like any malicious software program can. Here's a couple of examples of famous worms. The I Love You, a famous worm from 2000, and it spread through email disguised as a love letter. It affected millions of computers worldwide in the 2000s. Blaster, it's a worm that exploited a vulnerability in Microsoft Windows to spread across networks in 2003, and we have Conficker too, a highly resilient worm that spread through a vulnerability in the Windows operating system and was able to infect millions of machines, creating a massive botnet. So multiple examples of worms. Self-replicating program is a self-replicating malicious program that can spread independently without a host. And it can do pretty much anything you can expect. Disrupt services, steal data, install other malware, and so on.
Want to take down malware? Come to Intellectual Point. We have live instructor-led training and on-demand training for cybersecurity and AI courses. We will help you launch your career in IT. Because who doesn't want to save the day and maybe dodge a ransom note or two?